Hey, everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of The Road to the ProcureTech Cup. It's the show that's all about showing you procurement professionals and demonstrating the art of the possible with procurement technology. It's episode 19 today. We've got Meshworks on the show that's going to come and show us their supplier discovery, source to contract, and SRM capabilities, specifically in direct and through manufacturers. So really excited about that, given it's a space that doesn't get a whole lot of love in the ProcureTech space. And once again, I'm joined by my fearless co-host, Chief Strategy Officer at RiseNow, Gabe Perez. Thanks so much for being here again, Gabe.
Yeah, no, excited to be here and excited to, I think, dive into our first direct ProcureTech. It's such an important area. I'm surprised there's not more innovation. So excited to see what Meshworks has.
Yeah, absolutely. You had a good week?
Good week back from the baseball tournament. Nice to get back into the swing of things. Short week with MLK here in the US, but a great week, and looking forward to ending with a good show today.
Awesome. Yeah, with a bang with that direct space, as you mentioned, because I hadn't thought about that, but I think you're right. We I may be mistaken, but if we comb through what happened since September, not a whole lot of direct stuff on there. There's a lot of solutions that apply to both direct and indirect, but definitely one of the only ones that focuses specifically on direct. And just a reminder that we're on the road to the ProcureTech Cup, as I mentioned at the start. So in March, we're going to have a big tournament on LinkedIn for you viewers to vote on solutions that you liked, see some demos that you may have missed, and just a whole lot of fun on LinkedIn around education, around the power of procurement technology. So there's still about 35 spots open for the tournament for other ProcureTech providers, and those tournament spots will open on February 12th for interested parties. So have a look out for that. Notify folks if you've got vendors that you love, that you want to see in the tournament. That's when it's going to go down. And just before we get into having Sahil on the show, just a reminder of the agenda, company overview. So he's going to talk to us about Meshworks, what they do, what their unique value proposition is, their ideal customer profile. Then we'll dive straight into a demo. At the end of that demo, Gabe will come back with some tougher questions around how do we actually make this work in a client environment, and mapping that to the ProcureTech market map as usual. So that being said, let me bring in Sahil, who's the founder and CEO of Meshworks. How's it going, Sahil? Thanks so much for coming on.
Doing well. Nice to talk to you, Joel and Gabe, and good to be here and looking forward to sharing more about our tool with a bunch of procurement professionals. It's really cool what you're doing. I think, as you mentioned, direct doesn't get as much love, I think, sometimes. And so we've, built this over the last few years, and looking forward to sharing more. So thanks for having me on.
Very cool. So I think you've got some slides prepared for us. We can dive straight in if you want to, and I will bring them up here.
Perfect. Awesome. So I'll just start by giving a little bit of background on our family of companies. We come from Metrics Holdings, operate around the world, have customers in a variety of different industries that you'll see. Our main three divisions are manufacturing, where we have our own plants, supply chain, where we have global sourcing and supply chain operations all around the world, and then software, where we actually develop digital tools, software solutions that really connect buyers and suppliers all over the world. And you see some of the statistics there on the left side. These are a variety of our customers. They come, again, from a range of different industries, whether that's automotive, agriculture, construction, heavy machinery, industrial spaces, even some consulting as well with Tech Mahindra. So what does Mesh do? We are a supplier management software, an end-to-end supplier management software that really connects those buyers and suppliers. So we have a few different modules: sourcing, supplier relationship management, and quality management system. And these combined modules actually fill most of the gaps of what a typical ERP is doing. And so we focus on sourcing teams and giving them an audited manufacturer database. So sourcing teams can basically find capable, qualified, and audited manufacturers. Our database spans across 40 plus countries, spans over 180 different commodities. over 50, 60 different specific types of manufacturing processes and materials that go, into the thousands, basically. For procurement, specifically the end-to-end supplier relationship management. So I think anything from identification, evaluation, qualification of suppliers to RFQs, quoting, pricing, negotiating, documentation, certifications, terms, things like that. How do procurement teams benefit from Mesh today? These are a few case studies. So finding suppliers faster, dual sourcing some of your A-rank parts, critical components, streamlining direct supplier management, RFQs and efficiency across that process, and saving time in qualification of new suppliers, new manufacturers.
Quick question there, Sahil. When you talk about dual sourcing, indirect, a lot of the times, especially when you get into custom manufacturing, people are stuck with not many suppliers that can actually service them. So how are you doing that? Are you doing that with game theory? Are you doing that with, AI? How are you creating the competition when it may not be there?
Yeah, so I think what we want to do is we feel that we can basically give small assessments, which are in-person audits that our mesh quality engineers do. So we have mesh quality engineers, 15 to 20 engineers across 5 different countries all over the globe. And they go and visit factories every single day to basically give an apples to apples comparison of a direct material supplier in China, a direct material supplier in Vietnam, and a direct material supplier, here maybe near us like Mexico. So that's kind of how we do it. And we'll get into more of that in the demo. Good question, though, Gabe. We focus on what I would call the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 of the supply chain, as well as OEMs, and specifically in what we would call like industrial markets. So think automotive, aerospace, oil and gas, energy, lighting, agriculture, medical devices, healthcare, just general manufacturing, fabrication, things like that.
And Sahil, you said something very interesting there about like going into plants every day. So, and you mentioned, suppliers in your network around, in 80 plus countries, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So is that kind of the moat you've created for yourself in the sense where you've actually done the on the ground boots in the plants work to be able to put those supplier profiles in your solution?
That's exactly what we do. We become an extension of sourcing teams, of direct material procurement teams. And that extension happens through boots on the ground resources that we have in those different areas. So we even have a request suppliers feature that, users can use to kind of request suppliers in different regions with different capabilities, different technologies, whatever it may be. Even certifications and things in certain cases. So we've had very obscure requests, that we're able to handle because of our broad variety and spectrum of direct material suppliers.
So it's not just software, like service, that service comes along with it, right? Which is kind of a highly differentiated.
100%. Yeah. So our 2 differentiators, and I think Gabe, you touched on it earlier with your questions. One of our biggest things is mesh audits. So these are, again, the in-person assessments that we do. They span across a few different categories. So manufacturing process and layout, the support processes, and then quality, engineering, and logistics. You'll get a kind of a glimpse of exactly what that does. But it's a 45-question assessment. And it's the same assessment that you have on a supplier in Korea, a supplier in Europe, and a supplier in North America. And we do a lot of that standardization so you can, basically cut across any region.
And sorry, this is really interesting. One more question. I know we want to.
No, please. Yeah.
But, one of the things I've seen on the indirect side is when somebody's getting involved in supplier enablement or the supplier side that's not the customer, sometimes it's harder to get adoption. How are you getting these suppliers to give you this information and let your engineers actually get this? Is it because you're representing a specific customer, or are you doing this generally? And how are you getting that approval from the suppliers for this data?
It's a fabulous question. When we initially would go and approach suppliers, it was always, hey, who are your customers? What are the projects that you have in the pipeline? And so we've been able to kind of build this marketplace where we actually have customers and buyers who place bids. These are publicly, exposed bids. They have an NDA process. There's all kinds of data security around getting to those part documents, but it really exposes, and you get to see kind of the broad spectrum of different projects, whether that's aluminum die casting for a butter heat exchanger part, or an aluminum die casting for a knitting machine, or a fabrication that goes into an automobile. And we'll go into a glimpse of that as well, so you can see what the marketplace looks like. The second differentiator, and I think this is an important one, is we are very focused on industrial manufacturing, and specifically contract manufacturing and what we would call engineered mechanical components. So you see some of our main commodities and processes there, cut across, steel, aluminum, copper, plastics, even some electronics, and then manufacturing processes like castings, forging, stampings, fabrications, machine components, things like that. We do not compete with ERPs. I want to make that very clear. I think, sometimes that can be mistaken. We fill the gaps of ERPs, and those are, what you see there in terms of identification, evaluation, qualification. So that's pre-bringing suppliers on, RFQs, quotings, drawings, documentation, contracts, all of that, again, prior to you selecting and approving and bringing suppliers on. This is all pre-ERP. And then the post part of that is the supplier development. So, you have supplier development, procurement teams that are, in charge of improving, supplier performance year by year. How do they do that when their single source of truth, is basically that supplier data, that's in the ERP? That can be a huge challenge. Gabe, I think this is another part of your question that I wanted to get to at this point is, we had over $1 billion quoted, right, across 5,000 plus manufacturers. And so this is another reason for suppliers to join. It gives them a reason to kind of, come in. They can view projects, like I said, they can sign NDAs and kind of begin immediately quoting and working with buyers that fit what they're looking for. So now I'm going to set up basically two personas. These are going to be basically example people from example companies, just wanted to use kind of, companies that we would know. And then I'll get directly into the demo. So this is a sourcing director, and based in the US, team of 15 category managers. The problem that he's running into is he lost $2 million in revenue last month because part shipments were delayed from China. These are single source parts. So I need to find a backup. I'm looking for resiliency, looking for new suppliers for my critical components. I'm going to find 2 die casting suppliers in India, and I'm going to find 2 machining suppliers in Vietnam. And I'm going to walk you guys through that here in a second. And then the second persona that we have is the RFQ creation. So this is a procurement director based in US, team of 20 buyers and sourcing engineers. The C-suite wants a reduction of 10% purchasing costs on metals and electronics, and better visibility into cost negotiations and RFQ packages. So we're going to digitize the RFQ with suppliers, build should cost models or show you how to do that, and then how to find and gather qualified supplier feedback. So Joel, should I move to my, perfect.
Yeah, you can go to the demo, and Gabe and I have jumped the gun on questions here in this first part, so we'll try to be a bit quieter on the second one.
No, you are absolutely fine. They were fabulous questions, so no problem. I appreciate it. So what you see here is, so this is, we're finding 2 die casting suppliers in India. And so actually before that, what I'll do is, you can search suppliers across different certifications, commodities, processes, countries, mesh ratings, product categories, industries, applications. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to look for die casting. And we decided India. And this is because as a sourcing director, I'm looking for resilience for my die casting suppliers that are in China. So there's a single source supplier in China. I'm finding 2 die casters that I like in India, and then I'm going to share that with my team. So let's go in, let's look at maybe, you know, one kind of slightly higher rated supplier and one slightly lower rated supplier so we can get the whole spectrum. So here you see Victory Precisions. They do aluminum die casting. They have a 4.08 rating. We're going to look at this. You'll see here some of their company information, gets an idea of exactly who they work with. So Rolls-Royce, Hitachi, Cummins, some of their capabilities. So here you can see actual specific materials, processes, manufacturing lines, the capabilities in terms of types of products they can produce, all the certification standards. And then this is a big thing for sourcing teams, is to know what type of machines and equipment they have. So I can tell, you know, hey, if I'm looking for, you know, a 500-ton machine, then maybe they have it. And so you can do this here. And then we have an audit that validates all of that. And so our mesh engineer went in and audited this factory across these different categories. And these are the different categories. So they cut across, you know, quality, engineering, logistics, and manufacturing. And then each rating here has basically, does product flow well from process to process? Are work instructions and inspection instructions visible at every workstation? And it'll show you kind of what does a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 rating really mean. So this allows you to look at, okay, hey, I like this supplier. I want to look at their quality ratings because I'm looking for a second supplier for resilience. That's the persona, right? So I see that they're pretty strong in the quality. So I'm going to download this PDF and I'm going to send this to my sourcing team. This is one possible supplier that we found in India that we can begin, you know, sending RFQs and working with. So that's a higher rated supplier. Let's go to maybe somebody that's a little bit lower rated. So this Rise Die Casting, they're 1.83. Again, you know, it could be the types of industries they serve, types of capabilities they have, but we want to see. So you see their information here. Again, I won't go through all the details and the capabilities and audits, but I see that, hey, they can do the 500-ton casting that I'm looking for. And I'm going to look at the audit. Not so bad, but a little bit worse than the first one. So you can see, you know, ratings of 2 stars here. But again, they still do have some formal corrective action processes, things like that. And then at the bottom, you have videos of these factories that you can download and explore as well that we get. So that's 2 die casting suppliers. So now I'm going to reset this. And we said we want to find 2 machining suppliers as well. And that was going to be in Vietnam. So let's search this. Let's look for Vietnam. And you now can see there's 202 machining suppliers in Vietnam that we have. And we really want to stick to the ones that have a rating, at least for now. So Denko Mechanical, looks like they have a 3.53 rating. They do machining, which is what I'm looking for. So again, you see their company details, their capabilities. So they do machining. They also do stamping. You can see their machines as well. 38 CNC lathes, 28 CNC milling machines, and then the audit as well. And again, these are all standard audits that we have across any different commodity, category, process, industry, region. It's very agnostic across all of that. And then let's say you're finding a second machining supplier, right? So, you know, maybe we want to find somebody. This is a 4.73. This is, you know, very well rated supplier. In this case, again, you can see some of their details. I can see that they do specifically only machining. They are very focused on that. They have 58 machines. And then again, I can see all the audits here as well. So this is persona 1, where I'm looking for 2 or 3 suppliers across a few different commodities and categories, and very easily able to find them. You can download all of those profiles and share them with your teams. You can also add them to your My Suppliers, request suppliers here, like I talked about, and save searches. So you can, you know, save searches for the future if you want. So that's persona 1. I'll move on to persona 2. Joel, Gabe, are there any questions about persona 1, or should I just go right into persona 2?
Go right into persona 2.
I have a bunch of questions, but at the same time,
I have a lot of questions, but I'm just
yeah, we want to be
Okay,
conscious of time, so you got a few minutes in your use case.
No problem. Okay, awesome. So So now, again, we talked about the second persona is cost reductions and having better visibility on RFQs and cost negotiations. So what does that mean? I have to integrate all my suppliers into one place and then basically manage all my RFQs and cost proposals from one place. So what do? I can basically manage the whole process of integrating suppliers and creating RFQs here. So you see that this is my RFQ summary page. I've sent it to 5 different suppliers. It has 3 different parts here. You can see their step drawings, so they're pretty large files. It can take basically anything, 3D models, things like that. And then I can compare all the supplier quotes here. So I see that, okay, hey, I had 3 suppliers who quoted, 2 who did not. And I click this compare button, and now I get an apples to apples comparison across 3 different suppliers, shipping terms, Incoterms, cost breakdown. The categories that you see here are all completely customizable. So these are RFQ templates that can be customized so that each supplier can kind of, you can gauge exactly what you want to get back from the supplier. I do also want to show you, so this is how you would basically manage the whole supplier quote process. This provides visibility into cost negotiations, and you have better basically an idea on exactly where the cost structure comes from for the products that you're serving. And then the second thing I wanted to show is this is more specifically for like automotive, aerospace, some of the industrial segments where they do should costing. So they're building up should cost models. And this is essentially a much more detailed template. We've taken this based on our work across hundreds of different automotive companies in terms of how they quote. And so you see that their quotes, actually, when you click the compare screen, it's a much bigger breakdown. So you have conversion costs, machining costs, packaging costs, secondary process costs. I can break this as detailed as I want, right? And this can be completely exported. You can add your margin. So we have basically quote to customer, which is what you would call landed costs, where I can add my margins and then share that and send that to potential customers. I can award directly from here. And then the last thing I wanted to show is for this use case, for this persona of trying to reduce costs, this is basically a marketplace where suppliers, and this, Gabe, kind of answers your earlier question too, in terms of, hey, are there projects for suppliers? How do suppliers know their customers here, right? So you can see that SPX Flow, for example, is looking for stainless steel machining. They just inputted this yesterday. Wire harnesses for automotive industry, 12 responses. Vehicle electronics for automotive, die casting for aluminum, steel, appliance industry. So all of these, and you see 17, 23, 10, 19, 25, these are a lot of responses in this space, where direct material suppliers are typically not that engaged. And so what we find is that direct material buyers find a lot of value in putting bids up because they get 25 very qualified responses from very capable manufacturers who can produce the parts, that they're looking for. So, so that's basically it. And then you'll see, kind of just an example in terms of how it's blocked off. So I can't get access to this until I sign this and respond to him and this other buyer approves my NDA. Only then can I see this part and then begin quoting and giving him information back on that. So I think that's the second persona, that we talked about.
Yeah, I love it, and I see, I see the work, all the work that goes into creating that competitive advantage on the supplier front, right? But as we say before starting this segment, the demos are always pretty, but it's time to get real.
Yeah, well, I have a lot of questions, but we only have 5 minutes left. So, and my question shifted a little bit as I watched the demo. I mean, it's one of the they are some of the richest supplier profiles I've seen in software, because supplier discovery usually hasn't worked very well. And quite frankly, in direct procurement professionals usually say, I know my suppliers. I already know who it is. How do you scale that level of detail when you're doing this with people in terms of getting this type of information? And then the second part of that question is, are you seeing use cases where you're actually driving sales leads? And then is the supplier paying for that service?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, yeah, we are seeing the first of all, to your scale question is we do have pockets where we focus. So we can focus resources into those areas, whether that's India, Vietnam, China, Poland, or Mexico, which is our focus areas. That allows us to kind of expand from there. The second thing in terms of, do you have concrete sales leads? We have a variety of supplier success stories that are on our website today where they've won $100,000 projects all the way up to almost $2 million projects that have come from EV manufacturers, that have come from solar energy type of companies, automotive companies. So our supplier success stories cut across India, Vietnam, China, all those different countries I mentioned. So we have seen it materialize into sales leads where suppliers really do benefit. And we have a marketing pro package that they can basically purchase to gain insights into profile traffic, who's viewing my profile, all that type of stuff.
Great. Well, yeah, I definitely have more questions, but Joel, I'll pass it back to you.
All right, cool. Yeah, and I see like the riches are in the niches, so to speak, right? So you niching down and being very specific about what you do and don't do seems to be the magic formula here, at least for what you're up to. So I'd love to just bring up the ProcureTech market map and have you speak to, visually where mesh plays. I think you've shown us and told us pretty clearly during the demo and the pitch, but just to let you reiterate on that, where you're heading in the future from a roadmap standpoint, any partnerships that you want to highlight, this is the section for that for sure.
Yeah, no, I think what I would highlight again is we focus on the source to contract space, like it's noted, and that is everything in terms of pre-supplier, onboarding. So qualification, evaluation, selection, all of that type of stuff. We work across commodity management teams, sourcing teams, purchasing teams, procurement, even supply chain in some cases. And what we found is that most supplier management today happens very fragmented. It happens across emails, shared folders, collaboration, different tools like that. So we've tried to basically centralize everything into one place where you can come and have a one-stop shop to find suppliers, manage suppliers, and do everything. And we offer kind of integrations that we can do with ERPs to make it more simple. And then last thing on the partnership side, we've signed partnerships with companies in Europe, in Mexico, as well as the US. And all of those, partnerships are really designed to kind of expand and grow our whole community of users all across the world in different sectors that they may play in. Most of those companies are doing consulting. Quality House in Mexico, there's Trivista here in the US, Eurometrics in Europe. And they're basically, kind of expanding our reach with new customers, new users, and things like that. So
cool. And do you have any partnerships on the technical side, like with source to pay suites, other tools that complement what you do?
No, it's a great question. We're actually actively working through a few of those, manufacturer type ERPs and things like that, where we will be announcing, some new partnerships that are on the tech side, that are kind of out of the box integrations with, third party tools and things that most people may use today here in the near future. So be on the lookout for that.
Cool. Very cool. And Gabe, I'll hand you another opportunity for a tough question if you want one. I think we have a time for one last one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just fascinated by the amount of supplier data, but I'm also, trying to understand, do you really have what some of these big global companies need, right? Because it is so specialized. A lot of those have custom machinery, custom things they need. I mean, supplier discovery has been not so successful on the indirect side, in my opinion. The direct side, I would think you would face some resistance because direct procurement professionals usually know their space very, very well in their category. Are you facing that resistance from them?
Yeah, I mean, I think it does. It 100%, we do sometimes face resistance, but I think what has happened is more people are open to looking at new geographies, new options, and that can be through two fundamental things, whether that's supply resiliency, finding supply resiliency, or enabling the cost reductions and reducing your cost and making that, the cost structure stronger. So we've seen that those two opportunities typically incentivize buyers to look further into exploring, hey, okay, should I maybe look at a direct material supplier, secondary option, things like that. But yeah, it definitely does come up. Direct material people kind of know, exactly the space that they play in. But we feel fundamentally that there is very strong manufacturers in corners of the world that most OEMs just don't have people. So you can go to, the rural parts of Vietnam, the rural parts of India, the rural parts of China, and we have extremely strong suppliers there.
Great. Appreciate it. Very interesting.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Cool. And so, Sahil, thanks for coming on the show today. Really interesting solution and kind of services piece to it as well, which I find keeps it makes a very interesting value proposition. Where can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more about Mesh?
Yeah, you can come to find us at www.meshworks.com. You can find me on LinkedIn, Sahil Shah. Happy to connect. And yeah, we have, all the different contact forms and everything on our website. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, message, DM, whatever. So.
Very cool. Thanks so much, Sahil, and for everybody else who's watching the show. Thanks for tuning in this week again. You've got the QR code on the middle of your screen here. So if you want to keep following the action on the road to the ProcureTech Cup, just join the Pure Procurement newsletter. We'll also share trends, best practices, and latest developments in the space of ProcureTech. And Gabe and I also operate on the consulting front to help organizations build their roadmaps, execute on their roadmaps to get to better business outcomes from a procurement standpoint with the help of technology. So on that front, or on that note, I should say, thanks to everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you again next week. Thanks, Gabe.